Hi, everyone, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, depending on whichever part of the world you are in. A very warm welcome. For us in Asia and in this part of the world, it's nearly the end of the day, but for some of you, you are probably joining in now, or you've attended some of the earlier sessions. So while it's quite late in the day for us, it's a topic which is very close to our hearts, and therefore we are going to give it our all, and hopefully leave you with something to think about at the end of it. You've heard some very interesting speakers, and if I were to kind of distill one consistent trend since morning, it has been around sustainability, it has been around inclusion. We heard Vitalik in the morning talk about the proposed migration from proof of work to proof of stake and how it's important from an energy consumption standpoint. We heard my colleague and dear friend Ayaz talk about sustainable finance a while back, something we at the Global Impact Fintech Forum are very passionate and focused on. And on that theme, we shall continue now on the topic of banking, the unbanked and the underbanked. But right off the bat, I want to kind of broad base it a little and I go beyond just banking, the underbanked, to talking about inclusion, financial inclusion, economic inclusion, digital inclusion, making it a little more holistic and broader than perhaps what the topic may allude to. So with that, it's my absolute pleasure and delight to have four great panelists from across Asia. And without further ado, I will request each of them to do a very brief round of introduction, starting with Lakshmi, and then we'll go in alphabetical order, Anand, Dilip, and Lito.
Thank you, Malik. First of all, thanks to Virtual FinTech Fair for this opportunity to participate in this panel. Again, as Malik said, a topic very near and dear to our heart. I'm Lakshmi. I work for Rapyd, which is a FinTech or as a service unicorn. What we do is we make it easy for businesses to accept payments and to do payouts and provide innovative financial solutions for their own customers. At Rapyd, I run the network expansion efforts and manage delivery. Prior to Rapyd, I spent a decade at PayPal, spanning different roles across engineering, program management, and business operations. Once again, super excited to be here with this group of illustrious panelists. Thank you.
Thanks, Lakshmi.
Yes, copy that, Lakshmi. I'm Anand Bajaj, founder of Nearby Technologies. Having served 17 years in banking, I thought it was not enough, and there is a lot more to be taken to the bottom of the pyramid. So the whole configuration is about taking high end of technology to the bottom of the pyramid, to the mass India, where 8% people are digital savvy, greedy, if I may say, self-service oriented, but the 92% India is marginalized and subsidized. And that's broadly the average nationwide in all the states. We are here to bring financial liberation to the nation sooner than planned. And I am joined with worthy friends like Dilip at Spice. So over to you, Dilip.
Thank you, Anand. Hello, everyone. I'm Dilip Modi, founder Spice Money. I've had over 2 decades of entrepreneurial experience in the mobile telecommunications and technology space. The first decade or so of my experience has been in building mobile networks in India in partnership with leading telcos from around the world. Today at Spice Money, we are a mission-driven company focused on rural fintech. We have a mission to digitally and financially empower over 10 million small merchants and entrepreneurs in rural India. And that is why, as I come into this panel, I'm so excited to join others to talk about fintech for good. And we're very passionately chasing our goal of financially empowering over 1 billion people. So glad to be here. Over to you, Lito.
Thank you, Dilip. Thank you once again to the organizers. Of course, thank you, Malik, for inviting me to be part of this session. And to introduce myself, I'm Lito Villaneuva. I'm the Executive Vice President and Chief Innovation and Inclusion Officer for RCBC, and concurrently the Chief Digital Transformation Advisor for the Lichenko Group companies, that spans across around 60 businesses in the Philippines. Of course, also the founding chair of the FinTech Alliance, the PH, that is the organization of FinTech and digital players in the Philippines. that would generate over 90% of fintech initiative transactions in the Philippines. And what else? I've been with fintech, payments, telecommunications, and consulting roles in my past 25 years of professional life, and so I'm not so keen to reveal the numbers, but Dilip forced me to to say the numbers. But anyway, so I welcome this this session, and I would like to learn more from our co-panelists. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lakshmi, Anand, Dilip, and Lito. And my name is Malik. I will be moderating this panel. I do wear many hats, and you can check out my profile on LinkedIn if you need more details. But I do speak at conferences all over the world quite regularly, and I'm absolutely delighted today to be with such a distinguished panel of not just experts, but actual practitioners, kind of where the rubber meets the road. And that is going to be my attempt today to really extract not just ideas, but real life examples on what financial inclusion really means in the context of each one of their organizations, but also each one of their countries, because we have 4 panelists from 3 different countries, perhaps spanning a dozen geographies. So we'll try and learn from different contexts as well. So let me jump in straight away. My first question is actually open to all of you, and we will start with Dilip over there. We've been hearing about financial inclusion, and at least the ones who are passionate about it, and I have heard about it, I have spoken about it at event after event, and if I may be blunt, it's a nice fashionable thing to talk about these days. We quote numbers depending on whichever source you refer to, of anywhere from 1.4 to 1.6 billion unbanked or underbanked adults all around the world. So that's still more than 25% of adults are perhaps outside of the mainstream financial system. But the definitions really are, I won't say all over the place, but they vary. There are so many ideas which float around, right? Some people feel it's about opening a bank account. Some say, no, it's about a transaction account, getting people enabled on transacting. Then some say, no, it's about getting them included in the broader financial ecosystem. My question to all the experts and practitioners here is, what is your definition and idea of what is financial inclusion and why? Dilip, we'll start with you, then Anand, Lito, and then Lakshmi. This time we'll keep the lady for the end.
Thank you, Malik, for that very important question. I'll speak in the context of my home country, India, but it is a representative of a lot of the goals of financial inclusion around the world. In India, we have over 1 billion people who live in rural and semi-urban India. And when we talk about financial inclusion in India, I think 90% of rural homes in India have a bank account. So I think the challenge of having a bank account has been kind of solved as far as India is concerned, especially in the last 5 to 6 years. I think what the challenges we face start from there in terms of being able to access your bank account, because the number of bank branches and ATM machines in India still have to reach out into rural India. And that is where the India stack and technology is playing a big role. So when we think about inclusion, it's about access, it's about products. When it comes to savings penetration, when it comes to credit, when it comes to insurance, we've seen that the aggregate credit mobilization and savings mobilization in rural and semi-urban India is a fraction, maybe close to 20% of total credit and savings. So the need for customized products and the need to be able to bring everyone into the formal financial economy is what I would define as the need to drive inclusion. And let me conclude by saying that the biggest thing that we need to drive is get people out of the poverty trap. And I think what is important is we have to realize that, in India, over 700 million people are small and marginal farmers, depending on agri income, like earning less than $33. And how do we get them to increase their income? So at the end of the day, how do we, drive income levels of people across the economy so they can contribute to the economic growth of the nation is very important. So to me, I think the key is to look at economic inclusion, and financial inclusion is a key enabler for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anand, over to you, please.
Yeah, contextually, the banks in India have done an amazing job over decades. But if you look at the demography, 7.5 lakh villages in India, 750,000 villages, and 105,000 bank branches, of which only 32,000 branches are catering to the rural in true sense. So very categorically, the maths does not add up here. If one will say that if 90% India has been seeded with a bank account, we say bank hai par banking nahi. Bank is there, but there is no banking, because where is the access point? And hence the Reserve Bank of India's own banking correspondent format comes to the rescue. Just before pandemic, when 115 million debit cards of RuPay expired because of chip and pin compliance deadline over, it was our digital Pradhan banking correspondent agents who were able to cater to the financial needs of people. So government giving money in the bank account, our Kirana shopkeeper, the mom and pop store, giving it in the hands of the citizen. So effectively, to globalize it, a pack of chips, a bottle of Coke, and 250 rupees of cash, please. That's the interaction at a retailer outlet now. And as Dilip rightly said, where does insurance go? Where does a prepaid card go? Where does a saving, remittance, a basic loan, or if you have taken a loan from somewhere, someone else, where do you pay the EMI? So the fact that the 500,000 retail touchpoints of Nearby Technologies, PayNearby, which are active, and 5 million downloads which have happened, are helping India bolster into getting financial liberation faster than planned. In some manner, I must also not miss the point that National Payment Corporation of India has helped India become future-proof or anti-fragile, if I were to quote the book, because a backup BCP of ATM is the Aadhaar enabled payment system, where you put your thumb. If your cards are not working, you have 10, so what? So let the cards expire. The Pratykshamev Pramanam, you are you who you are, has come to the fore. Beyond Kiko model world over, which is known in the financial inclusion space, the cash in, cash out, the 6 other parameters of A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, the ATM, bill payment, card payment, domestic remittances, EMI collection, financial funding of the retailer, or granular liability generation, or insurance. All of these things will add up, including, of course, 25 rupee of investment. So inclusion is quite wide. Financial inclusion is little narrow, but the what has been accomplished is the key pillar today to help us accomplish, is the center pole without missing the point. Lot has been done, and the transformation is in the make. Malik.
Thank you, Anand. Lito, over to you, and then I'll share some of my notes as well.
Thank you. I like Anand's alphabet of financial inclusion. But to answer your question, Malik, is financial inclusion limited to just, or could we define financial inclusion as just having to open a bank account? For me, my stake there is not, because it's beyond opening a bank account or having a relationship with a financial institution, regardless whether it's a wallet or a bank account. For me, financial inclusion is about responsive and responsible access to finance. It's not just about deposit accounts or savings. It has to be the whole slew of digital financial services, all the pillars that are involved, such as I call it PISIL, payments, investments, savings, insurance, and loans or lending or credit. So the thing here is that it has to be a complete package for any individual who is unbanked or undeserved to be able to enjoy the full benefits of the other people who are practically in the middle class or in the affluent society. It's more of how you can now cater to the requirements, and that's why I think financial inclusion is really imperative amongst developing markets such as the Philippines.
Thank you, Lito. Lakshmi?
So in addition to all the things that my panelists said, I just want to shine a light on one more aspect. I think while all of that is important, there is also a need for educating the next generation of people in terms of how to have a healthy relationship with money. People need to understand where money comes from, how can you grow it? How do you get access to working capital? There's a massive divide between what is available and what is being accessed, and the bridging gap in there is education. I think, my kids learn about history and math and like plenty of other interesting subjects in their school, but I think there's a massive need for someone to start engaging financial literacy as a curriculum from secondary education onwards, where you talk about how to create a budget, how to track your money, how to invest, what does compound interest mean, why does it matter over a period of 30 years, versus, just having that basic foundational knowledge about financial literacy, I think will play a huge role in moving the needle on financial inclusion.
Thank you, Lakshmi. Wow, each of you have made so many points. I think we could have a 45-minute discussion on each of those points. But if I were to kind of encapsulate, and I have learned so much in these 5 minutes, and added to my repertoire. So, Dilip, excellent notes on financial inclusion as a subset, or perhaps leading to and also being a result of economic inclusion. That is something I think we are all passionate about, and that is something we must not lose sight of in the hype and hoopla of financial inclusion that we hear all the time. Anand, I absolutely love your ABCDEF, and I don't know whether it extended beyond that, but I'll touch base offline with you. And Lito, one more acronym. What was that again? You said you're on mute.
Save, invest.
So payments, investments.
Payments, investment, savings, insurance, and loans.
PISIL, right? You said
PISIL is actually PINCH. Yeah.
Correct. So that's another acronym that I am taking away from this. Thank you on both of that. And Lakshmi, you again mentioned something that could be a whole discussion by itself. Younger people and financial literacy, two important topics, and at the intersection of the set of that itself is like. There's this whole story going around, if some of you have been tracking on how this generation, especially the millennials, relate to money, which is completely different from how our generation relates to it at all. And this whole meme stock mania, etc. If any of you are following, or if your kids are into it, it's a different world. I mean, with Papa Elon and Mommy Cathy Wood, sorry. It's a completely different world out there, but we'll park that for now. I think we've had quite a few points, important ones that we've discussed here from a contextual and conceptual perspective. So my next question to Dilip and Lito is to kind of bring it to life a little more for us in terms of your product solutions, and since you are in two different countries, which are similar in terms of challenges of the excluded population, but different in terms of perhaps cultural nuances. Tell us how you are trying to bridge the gap, both on the demand side as well as the supply side, on this particular challenge. We'll start with you, Lito. Give us the context of the Philippines and what Discartech tried to do, especially in the context of the pandemic last year. And Dilip, you can perhaps then bring in the India perspective.
Yes, thank you, Malik. At the height of the confusion and chaos wrought by the pandemic last year, RCBC was able to launch Discartech. It was actually at the height, in the middle of the pandemic, and no organization or company would even think of launching something that is on a time that is very uncertain. And Discartech has been the Philippines' first Taglish inclusion super app, or it's a fusion of the vernacular Tagalog and English, or the everyday language of every Filipino. So aside from this unique use of conversational language, Discartech also allowed the application of a basic deposit account with just one ID through an eKYC procedure. So in less than 3 minutes, you can already create an account. So no opening deposit, no maintaining balance, no dormancy fees were charged. So this, along with other features, led to an exponential rate of adoption unseen in the Philippines before. So Discartech recorded over 1 million downloads in its first month from the time that it was launched. And in fact, we were told that it's the fastest for any local finance app. So since then, we have also expanded our services to include sachet financial services such as micro insurance products and loan products. In fact, we are the first bank that was given or granted by the regulator to offer loans marketplace. No? And the Philippines is still under lockdown, and digital solutions sustain economic activity. And our volume of digital payments in March, for example, this year grew more than 3 times than previous year. So I believe that such growth in the digital payments and other activities will be sustained even beyond the pandemic. And customer adoption of digital will further grow. In fact, as people saw the benefits of having a faster, secure, transparent, and convenient way of doing financial transactions. So I think what we are now creating is really the behavior. It's beyond, so to really sustain consumer adoption.
Thank you, Lito. So if the one thing you said is so important: faster, secure, and sustainable. And that is something which we all have to bear in mind when we talk about not just supply side, but also adoption. Thank you.
Sure.
Dilip?
Well, Malik, we've seen in the last 1 year, especially at the start of the pandemic, there have been pictures of migrant workers going back home to their villages in India. These are pictures that the whole world has seen. These were scenes where people left their homes and to go back, left their workplaces to go back home, go back to the villages. What we've done at Spice Money and during the last 18 months has really on 2 main fronts. One is that the government has tried to help out all the people who've gone back into their homes in rural India by providing subsidies. Out of over $200 billion of subsidies that have been given over the last several years, over $55 billion of those subsidies were just given in the last 12 months. So at Spice Money, what we enabled is many of these people coming back home to onboard themselves onto the Spice Money platform as an entrepreneur, to be able to not only withdraw those subsidies for themselves, but also be able to disperse the subsidies to consumers around them. So the challenge that we highlighted earlier, which is the inability to access a bank branch or an ATM in rural India, is what we're trying to address at Spice Money, which is basically converting your local mom and pop store into an ATM, a human-assisted ATM using a biometric and a smartphone. And as a result of that, the money that the government has put into people's accounts into rural India for them to be able to go to their nearest mom and pop store and using their biometric authentication, which is what Anand mentioned, a simple thumb impression, be able to withdraw cash from their bank account, from their nearest mom and pop store. So that is one example of how we've enabled through our platform to be able to access your bank account. So while everyone has a bank account, how do you transact with your bank account in terms of being able to access cash? The second example that I would give is around credit. One of the main challenges we've seen around this time is a slowdown in credit, because a lot of banks have been shy of giving credit because of lack of collateral, all uncertainty in earnings and all of that. What we've tried to do is all the entrepreneurs in rural India, which have onboarded onto our platform, we've been able to innovate on microcredit for them. So effectively, being able to give them loans between $50 to $1,500 for a period of 3 to 6 months, and being able to offer repayments on a daily basis and give them the flexibility to be able to pay when they have the money to pay. So if it's a 180-day loan, be able to give them 140 days and the flexibility to pay in any of those 140 days. So to take care of fluctuation in cash flows, to be able to ensure that there's no shock of repayment in monthly installments, so make it daily so it's easier for them to do. And also keep ensuring that in addition to the monies flowing from the government welfare programs, we are able to give them source of credit to grow their business. So I think in terms of just building the last mile or what the first mile kind of digitally enabled ATM and bank branch infrastructure, also being able to start our journey around credit on the back of data that we are getting on our platform. So I think these are the 2 principal products that we've been able to innovate in the last 18 months, especially during this period. And on the back of this, we've seen that when the pandemic started, we had close to 200,000 entrepreneurs who were on our platform. That number has now grown to over 600,000 entrepreneurs. So during this period of time, we've seen more people come on our platform and not only deliver financial services, but also earn an income for them over and above the agriculture-based income that they were earning. So I think, to us, this has been a time of driving both access as well as credit. And I think, I'm hoping that going forward, we'll be able to learn more on this journey that we are on to be able to financially empower more and more people in underserved communities.
Thank you. That was really fascinating to me as well. Two different countries, two different contexts, similar challenges and problem statements, and two different business models coming at it from different perspectives. So that's really interesting, and thank you for sharing those. I'm sure our audience will find it very useful, going beyond just theory or lip service of financial inclusion to how you are actually enabling it on the ground, and not just for individuals but small businesses as well. And on that, I want to segue to Anand and Lakshmi. We've heard about two examples of how, especially during the pandemic, the crisis has been in some ways been converted into an opportunity. And for those of us who've been in this space for long, and those of us who, like Anand, who come from a banking background, or even Lito, we've kind of been trying to push digital finance for a long time, but we always heard that customers are not ready for it. And then suddenly the pandemic struck, and in 1 year we've seen a complete change of scenario, mostly because there was no other option. And as Lito said, at least here in the Philippines, varying levels of lockdowns continue. So there has to be an alternative model, otherwise the whole economy comes to a standstill. But what I'm trying to get at, Anand and Lakshmi, is we are facing these push and pull of two forces. So on the one hand, you are talking about digital really not only being the way forward, but perhaps being a lifesaver to many of these micro businesses in this particular pandemic environment. On the other hand, if you read any of those reports from UNCDF or others which try to address financial inclusion challenges, they always talk about high touch along with high tech. And then here we are in a scenario where we are trying to move away from touch and contact to contactless altogether. So in your view, what is more important? Is it high touch or is it high tech? And what is the future going to be, and why? Anand, we'll start with you, and Lakshmi, then you can also bring in perspectives from the varied clients that you serve.
Thanks. Actually, we call it digital, the digital and the physical merger, where assisted digital financial service is being catered to. Globally, it's known as the agent banking model. And while we bring the high end of technology to the bottom of the pyramid in an assisted, trusted mode at a kirana shop, at a mom and pop store, the India shall evolve from assisted to self-service. And I'm sure this is world over the same format of evolution, the leapfrogging that shall happen from assisted to self-service. And look at the digital proliferation that is coming, the mobility that has come, the Jan Dhan, Aadhaar, mobile that we say in India, the Trinity. It has laid the railroads in India, at least I would say, of even if you are not carded, these cards will work. You have 10 cards without expiry date, without password requirement or to remember something. It is not as starking as no tablet, no education, which Nandan very recently highlighted, that the digital divide is growing actually, because now if a year and a half goes without going to school, you can't have your primary education if you don't have a tablet at home. So it's not that bad. But thankfully in a digital payment space, which is most essential to start the wheel spinning, at least you have access to the financial services. That's where digital has played a role with partnership with the physical, and where 500,000 active retailers processing about $800 million every month on our platform, with sachets, as Dilip said, $5 to $10 of withdrawal that people are able to do. Effectively, they say 2 kilo aloo, 1 kilo pyaj, or 250 rupees cash dena. 2 kgs of potato, 1 kg of rice, and give me 250 rupee cash. Why not in the same side, you are able to do 25 rupees of fixed deposit at the same trusted retail partner outlet. So that is what we are thriving towards. A. B, the second part is to enable people and teach them what is the formula of interest, PRT upon 100. It is more important that we know what he needs. Everyone needs to save for child's education, for child's marriage, to buy a bike, or for emergency. And most important, they save for gold. Isn't it simple that I show him in my app, which is what we do in Bachat Khata with SBM Bank in India, where you choose a goal, you choose a timeline, and rest all the science is at the back end. You don't need to learn that you have to save so much money every month and so on. This is the calculation formula. So financial education is also as important as one can understand. To be thirsty, I don't need to learn what is H2O formula. It is enough for me to know a glass of water would suffice. But yeah, they also say, teach him fishing, not giving him fish. But there is a cusp there where user interface, if not a pure knowledge, a user interface simplification will help India evolve. And that is world over the format as well, where beyond knowing ABCD, I know at least 1, 2, 3, 4, thanks to the telecom revolution. So a lot has been taught on numbers, and for financial services, you need to know number. Your Aadhaar number is a number, your bank account is a number, and your money that you withdraw is a number. So I would leave it at that for now.
Thank you, Anand.
That Anand, you're full of mnemonics and quick to recall items. Thank you. I'm going to make a list after this. So Malik, in terms of high tech, I have a specific example I want to talk about, and high touch, and a specific example I want to talk about, and how I think those are really case by case, right? So my high tech example is international remittance. I'm sure all of you are aware that migrant workers are, so inward remittance that comes from migrant workers form backbones of certain GDPs in Nepal, according to World Bank numbers in 2019, was around 27% of their GDP. For Philippines, it was about 10%. Now, digital remittance, cross-border digital payments, again, World Bank estimates, is less than half the cost of being able to do that from banks, the average cost, or with high street money lenders. So a lot of fintechs have taken technology and put a wrapper on it, made it convenient, made it simple to use from an app, and save money for people. And when you think of migrant workers, right, generally the picture that comes to mind is someone in construction or agriculture. But what about nurses and doctors that work internationally in different countries? What about engineers? What about nannies? Women form 47% of the migrant workers across the world. Again, a World Bank number. And a majority of them send money back home. And any money that they save from using these digital payment provider goes into their children's welfare and education, which further unlocks the next generation's potential. So my view is, in this particular case, high tech has changed a lot of these equations to the extent that I saw a recent accolade from one of the ministers in Malaysia telling TransferWise has really made a big difference in people's life On the other hand, there's Kiva. So when I was working at PayPal, there was a massive integration where PayPal was the payment platform that he was using, and we all got $25 to invest or provide as a loan to someone. So I just went through the website and found someone who's looking for like a $250 loan to educate her child. $25 investment from my end, and it was repaid in a matter of 8 months. Kiva does all of this work by this massive network of field partners that they have. They do the social underwriting, they do the reference checks, they do the last mile disbursement, and make sure that people will also do the repayment. In fact, Kiva has a 96% repayment rate, which is amazing, phenomenal, right? So being able to do a crowdfunding in a non-profit manner and be able to change people's lives, just being able to give someone money so that they can go buy purchase a wholesale rate versus having to do it in a case-by-case basis makes their big difference in their margin. So I think in that case, the high touch framework works because it takes care of people that are financially excluded from the system. So there's no one size fits all when it comes to financial inclusion is my conclusion here.
Thank you, Lakshmi, and amazing points by both of you. And I have a couple of things I want to share, and one of them is it's not entirely humorous, but it hits home the point when I was reflecting on some of what you were saying as well. Just I think a couple of hours ago, our friend Mushir here, and we were chatting on something, and he was cribbing about one international remittance payment he made. I won't name the bank. It's not my policy to name and shame banks on a public forum, but one of the multinational banks, you can kind of decide from the 3 or 5 in that list, which charged him what, $35 for a $80 or $90 remittance. So he was saying, can you believe it? And it's like 2 hours later, here you are quoting the example of remittance, and that's absolutely so true, right? I mean, you go to the likes of, if any of you have ever stayed in Singapore or been to Singapore, perhaps Lito, you'll relate to it. If you go to Lucky Plaza in Singapore, all these Filipino domestic workers or nannies, etc., yayas, Sunday on their holiday, poor things, half the day they are standing there, wasting it in standing in the line and filling up forms, and paying relatively exorbitant sums. Some World Bank estimates say anywhere from 5 to 10% is the wastage or the leakage or the cost of micro remittances. So clearly there is a huge friction area here, and that needs to be solved. So thanks for bringing that out. And on the other hand, you spoke about Kiva, Anand spoke about his agent network, and again Dilip spoke about it as well. It's interesting and fascinating, for at least for many of us who've been in banking for 20 plus years, that the agent banking model in some form or agent finance model, let me put it this way, has been around for so long. But what we are seeing today is such a dramatic exponential rise, and also the way it has been adapted to in the context of rural India or provincial Philippines, etc. So it's quite fascinating. And one last thing, Arun, you keep talking about these 10 cards as being, or 10 fingers being surrogate to cards. And I remember when I think more than 15 years ago at Citi, and I was still in India at that time, we were trying to pilot with this biometric ATM, and we thought, we actually called it an innovation, and it was kept in our innovation hub. And people said, oh, it's a cool to do thing, but don't waste your time on it. Nobody's going to go down that path. So how times change, and how sometimes a tragedy like the pandemic triggers opportunities that we had hitherto never even thought of. So I know we are running all towards our time. So I want to perhaps now direct a very pointed question, and for this, Lakshmi, I'll come to you, and then the floor is open to anybody else who wants to add to it. But I go to the lady in our panel. I think you spoke about Kiva and this model of community lending. I don't want to use the term micro lending but community lending has been around in different forms or fashions, and now it's going digital. And as you rightly said, about 40, 50 or 60% in some cases is with and by women. When we talk about inclusion or inclusive societies, obviously a very important variable, and studies after studies have shown it. I mean, UNCDF and UNDP studies have also shown it. I read a couple of reports that where women are running these micro businesses, etc., the repayment rates are higher. The entire family comes. It helps at least bring them out of the poverty challenge or the poverty circle. So, and I know you are very passionate about gender inclusion. Can you give us maybe one or two, or at least probably one example that really has struck with you of digital finance being an enabler for gender inclusion?
Yes, I could totally do that. And Financial and Credit, the business division of And Financial, does access to capital in a machine learning based, alternate credit scoring based way. And because their disbursement or loan allocation or credit is based on the business's transaction that they can view and make assessment on, there is no need for like collaterals or assets, which typically are not in women's name because of cultural norms or the society in which they grew up and such, right? The fact that it removes the bias out of that equation and allows for better access to women to have capital, loans, and be able to grow their business is really phenomenal, the way that they've implemented that. I think PayPal's gotten a similar product called Working Capital, which does something very similar, where they're able to assess the risk based on people's volumes, and therefore they can account for seasonality. They can account for credit worthiness without it impacting their credit score. So I think those are a couple of things where fintechs have done well by women.
Thank you. And you know, Ant is a different story altogether. I won't touch upon it, but we all saw what happened to their recent IPO and some concerns that the Chinese regulators had on the possibility of a potential bubble being formed in shadow banking. But that's we are almost out of time. I would have loved to ask this question on the challenges as well, because obviously not everything is rosy when it comes to driving digital financial inclusion. There are many challenges. We unfortunately do not have time. We just have, I think, 1 minute left now. So there is a request from the audience, and I'll direct that question again to you, Anand. You have been requested to repeat your ABCD, EFG, whatever.
I've posted it on the chat actually, so one can pick it up from there. Please share.
Perfect.
It.
Perfect.
Artistic rendition of how you see inclusion from ABCD.
Sure. We are almost at the end of time, so I want to give closing comments to each of you for just 30 seconds. I'll start with you, Lito. By 2025, what percentage of transactions in the Philippines do you foresee becoming digital?
Well, we are very confident that we will be achieving the bold vision of our regulator, the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, that by 2023, 50% of financial transactions will be in the form of digital, and that 70% of adult Filipinos will be part of the formal financial system. In fact, in our latest estimate, already about 40% of the 50%, given the acceleration in digital adoption by Filipinos because of the pandemic. So I think we are on the right track, and all stakeholders are really cooperating with each other. I mean, the synergy, collaboration, cooperation amongst the players is still something of real value towards empowering, enabling, and engaging our customers.
Wonderful, thank you. And we can all agree, or at least both of us can agree, that BSP has been a major driving force, and this thing, they've really been one of the most progressive regulators I've had the pleasure of interacting with very closely, and you're also doing some amazing work there, Lito, you and your team and Discartech. So more power to you. Anand and Dilip, I'll ask the same question, 30 seconds each, in the context of India. Where do you see digital transactions and inclusion by 2025?
Dilip?
Well, the way I see it, and it's always great to end the discussion on a sign of hope. I think, India, we've seen over the last so many years that, we managed to get 1 billion people access to mobile. We've managed to get over 1 billion people a biometric identity. I'm just very optimistic that over a very short course of time, we will get 1 billion people into the formal financial fold. Whether it's a combination of pure digital or digital and physical, as some of the panelists have spoken, I think the jury's still out, but I do believe that in the financial services space, you need to create a trusted ecosystem. And therefore, there will be a role of intermediaries to enable inclusion to happen. But I'm very confident that riding on the different platforms already out there, we will get 1 billion people into the formal financial fold over the next 4 to 5 years.
Thank you. Anand, would you agree?
Yes, and I would say, yahi mati ubregi, yahi zarra chamkega. The phoenix shall rise from the ashes, and it is the same Atmanirbhar self-confidence that will evolve India, transition India into a financially liberated nation. We very clearly see that the cusp of ATM unviability and the rise of hands. Actually, Malik, you have been seeing my hands. So inshallah, a lot will happen a lot faster than planned.
Thank you. And Lakshmi, I wouldn't and shouldn't ask you the same question. One, because we are out of time. Two, I don't think Singapore has any challenge of exclusion. Everybody has multiple cards. So, but if I were to ask you one country in Southeast Asia that you think could be a benchmark for others to look at when it comes to driving inclusion, excepting Singapore, what would that be? Anand, I'll come to you, but let's
India.
ask.
I'm just prompting her.
No, that's why I said Southeast Asia. I specifically asked in her region.
I think Thailand has made massive improvements in that front with PromptPay, with their cross-pay corridor that they've established for real-time payments with Singapore. They're working with Vietnam in establishing similar touch points where cross-border payments will not take days, but a matter of minutes. And for small merchants, those matter of days can have a huge impact on how they're making sales with their inventory and paying their employees and such. So I think if it's not Singapore, then I would pick Thailand.
I would agree with you. Thank you for that, Lakshmi. With that, we come to the end of our panel. Many more questions that I was hoping to ask from all these 4 or 3 amazing gentlemen and this amazing lady, but we are already 2 minutes beyond time. So we'll just say thank you to all 4 of them. And with that, we over to you, Mushi.
Thank you so much, Malik. That was a phenomenal panel, a lot of important points, and banking the unbanked and the underbanked in Asia is going to be a big driver for the next 5 years. And we will definitely look forward to the billion plus people becoming digital very soon. So on behalf of all of our team, I want to thank the panel for the wonderful insights. We are also coming towards the last leg of the day today. We will next have the showcase by the ESG and sustainability focused fintech companies. So please stay tuned as an audience for that. On behalf of Virtual Fintech Fair, FinStep Asia, and Navsphere Media, I want to thank all of our sponsors, AWS and Invest Hong Kong, who are our platinum sponsors, S&P Global Intelligence, who are our gold sponsors, Vacuum Labs, and Krumzi Finovate, who are our panel sponsors, and of course, a lot of our various partners across different communities who have joined us. Thank you very much, and we hope you enjoy the last showcase. And we will be sharing the recorded sessions with all of the attendees over the next week. So once again, thank you for the panel, and we'll be closing this for now, and we'll head to the showcase in a few minutes. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.